Hey everyone, I'm Daniela, and today we're making pink pasta ravioli.
You'll find a list of ingredients and measurements in the description below.
And you may have noticed I've only listed them in grams. This is because for the most perfect, accurate pasta, you really do need accurate weight measurements. So I'd highly recommend investing in some scales.
To my blender, I'm adding in 125 grams of beet, including the beetroot juice. I'm also adding in 25 grams of olive oil. The olive oil acts like an egg yolk in a traditional pasta recipe, keeping it really silky and smooth. Because the beet makes this quite thick, you might need to add a little bit of water to your pasta, but we'll start with this and see how it goes.
Here's a pro tip for you. Whenever you're working with a highly pigmented ingredient, especially with pasta, I like to mix mine on a sheet of parchment paper. This makes sure I'm not staining my work surface.
Pour 300 grams of Tipo 00 pasta flour onto your work surface and make a well with the bottom of the bowl. Pour the beet mixture into the center of the well. Start incorporating the ingredients together using a fork. Pull from the bottom edges of the flour well. This will slowly start to bring your ingredients together, ensuring a smooth dough. Once some of the flour has started to absorb into the liquid, you can start adding more flour from the sides. Now that your dough is a little too thick to work with a fork, you can use your hands or you can use a bread scraper. I like to chop mine like this. Continue working the dough by hand. Now that there's no risk of my worktop being stained, I'll remove the parchment paper. If you find your dough is a little too sticky at this stage, you can sprinkle on a bit more flour. And if it's a bit dry like mine is, just dampen your hands and continue working the dough. You can see how just that little bit of water on your hands really pulls the dough together. You don't want to add too much. You'll want to knead the dough for about 10 minutes until it's really smooth. If you're still getting little pockets and pits, it's not ready yet. Alternatively, you can pop this into your food processor and pulse until it turns into a smooth dough. Once your dough is soft and pliable, like this, wrap it up and set it aside for at least 30 minutes. Time to make our filling. Line a mesh strainer with paper towel or cheesecloth. To this, add 250 grams of ricotta cheese. This will need to sit for about 10 minutes. To your drained ricotta, add in 60 grams of Parmigiano Reggiano or Pecorino Romano. Grate in a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg. And if you like it, add in a few turns of freshly cracked black pepper. Give that a mix until all of the ingredients have come together. You'll want to taste it to see if it needs any salt. I added in about a teaspoon to my mix. If your mix feels too dry, add in a little splash of milk, but not too much. I'm placing my cheese filling into a piping bag so that I can easily pipe it into my pasta shapes, and then I'll pop it in the fridge while I roll out my dough. Now that our dough is rested and it's beautiful and soft, it's time to roll.
You can make this recipe all by hand. You don't need a pasta machine, and if you're interested in finding out how to do that, check out my video linked below.
I like to work with a small piece of pasta at a time so that it doesn't dry out. Cut off about a quarter of your dough. The rest can get wrapped back up. Take your piece of dough and start flattening into a rectangular shape. Once it's about the width of your hand, give it a light dusting of flour. This prevents it sticking to the pasta rollers. When rolling your pasta, make sure to start on the thickest setting. On my roller, that's the number 8. And if you're using an electric roller, make sure to keep the speed very low. After the first pass, fold your pasta in half and then in half again. Then press down to seal all of those bits together. This just helps to strengthen the dough. Pass your pasta through again on the thickest setting at least twice before moving down to the next setting. Continue passing your pasta through, reducing the thickness with every other pass. You may need to continue lightly dusting your pasta with flour. For filled pasta, I like to go to the second thickest setting. It just gives a little bit more chew and it allows the pasta to hold the filling that little bit better. When your pasta is the desired thickness, set it aside on a lightly floured work surface. Now that all of our pasta has been rolled out, we're ready to fill it. I like to make a gentle indentation of whatever mold I'm using so that I know exactly where to put the cheese. I'm using hearts, but you can use whatever shape you like. You don't even have to do shapes, you can just cut them into squares. Once your placeholders are set, start filling your pasta with your cheese. You'll want to leave a slight edge on the pasta, about 1 centimeter. The edge makes sure that you can get a proper seal. Dip your finger in some water and run it around the edge of each shape. Then take your second pasta piece and place it over the first. Gently press around the cheese filling so that the pasta sticks together. If you have any air pockets, you'll want to use a skewer or a sharp knife to try and remove them. Air pockets in the pasta, once boiled, might make your ravioli explode. Make sure your pasta has sealed really well around the edges. Cut out your pasta and then place onto a baking sheet that's been lined with paper towel and dusted with a little bit of flour. To cook your ravioli, boil them in salted water for about 3 minutes or until they float to the top and change color.
If you're not using your ravioli straight away, you'll want to freeze it. Make sure to lay it on a paper-lined, flat baking sheet, pop it in the freezer, and once they're frozen, you can slide them into a bag to store. You'll want to use them up within a month. And it's really important not to overlap them because they'll definitely stick together. If you're looking for a pasta with egg in it, check out my homemade tagliatelle recipe. I show you how to make it by machine or by hand. Make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next week.